When I got back involved in retro gaming, it was with clone systems because I wanted to hook everything up to my TV via HDMI. I had this beautiful 60-inch Samsung. I wanted to have the best picture possible, and even to this day, not a huge fan of CRTs or PVMs. As I've gone on, I've realized that, it's easy-ish to connect old retro systems to your modern flat panel displays and have decent results. Now, I've also found it's possible to get some really bad results. If I wanted to play an NES, Super NES, and a Genesis, I could either do that with 3 different systems, or as I originally started to do it with the Retron 5. Now, after that, I started to collect the actual hardware more and more as I found better and better ways to get those pictures onto my modern flat panel TV. See, I am not a fan of CRTs or PVMs. I never have been. I never want to own one again. I know that makes me somewhat of a heretic in the retro gaming community, and I'm okay with that. Now, one of the first tools that I went ahead and picked up to really go ahead and get my retro systems to my modern TV is actually what I have playing behind me here. So this is Castlevania Bloodlines, also known as Castlevania the New Generation, I think, on some bootleg or import carts. This is playing through my JVC XI. That's right, I've got a freaking XI. Never thought that would happen. But it's going through my OSSC, my open source scan converter. Now, for me, I have found my OSSC works fantastically with my Sega consoles. I'm a Nintendo guy, I just am. My biggest library is my NES, followed by my Super NES, followed then, I actually think, by my Genesis. But it's one of those things, I want to play my Nintendo-based retro consoles as much as possible. And the OSSC just doesn't play well with them. And that is where I found these guys here. The original RetroTink from Mike Chi. Now this one has a custom case on it where, if you want to see how I did that, I'll have a link for you right up there. This allows me just no fuss, no muss, plug and play, plug my retro systems into here. I get a mini HDMI or micro HDMI. It's not a standard HDMI regardless, out that I could go into my capture cards. This worked fantastically. And then he came out with the RetroTink Pro and the RetroTink SCART, which I have right here. My Pro is actually down below. And then the RetroTink multi-format, each one doing a little bit more and different than the next. Now, once we got into the Pro series of upscalers, you got things like scan lines and comb filters, which is really wonderful to see. Now, what I want to know from you here today, before we go too much deeper into this video, I do have Castlevania Bloodlines playing behind me. What is your favorite entry into the Castlevania series across any system? For me, Super Castlevania 4. Love that game, love the music, love the artwork. Now, recently, Mike Chi from RetroTink announced not only that, we have all these terrific RetroTink options that are out there, and stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, because I am going to do a which RetroTink is right for you video. But he announced that on May 2nd or 1st of 2021, I can't quite remember, these guys here would be available for shipping. You're like, it's a box, what gives? Inside this box is the RetroTink 5X. It is designed to take the RetroTink family to the next level, to compete head-to-head with items such as the OSSC and the FrameMeister. There are a lot of promises inside this box, and what we're going to do, we're going to hit the bench, we're going to unbox it, take a look at how it comes out of the box, check the manual. We're also going to check the size and the connector fitment and compare it to like the original RetroTink and the OSSC. Let's go get started. All right, so here we go. We have the box here on the bench. I am super excited to dive in here, and what you're seeing on top, I just peeled off the address label because, quite frankly, you guys don't need to see my address. So we have a RetroTink 5X Pro postcard in the box. Congratulations on your purchase of the RetroTink 5X Pro. The Upscaler is designed to be extremely easy to use. To get started, plug in your micro USB power cord, the digital video cord to your HD TV, and the AV cord from your console. Press the input button on the device or the remote to select the correct source. You should now see your games upscaled to 1080p. If you're happy with the results, you need to do nothing more. Just enjoy the high definition clarity. For the full manual describing all the advanced options as well as staying up to date with the latest firmware, make sure you visit the site at RetroTink.com. Now looking at the remote, you have the power button to power off and save settings, the multitask button that will cycle you to the next output resolution. The OK button is the same function as the option button. The back arrow exits the on-screen display, the OSD. So the volume down button will cycle you to the next scanline strength. The mouse button will cycle you to the next H sampling mode, and the volume up will cycle you to the next interpolation mode. The down arrow will shift image down 1080p over. The right button again advance your on-screen display to the next option. The up button will shift image up 1080p over, and the home button is the same as the input button on the face of the unit. Again, also a really nice RetroTink sticker with the two bunnies on it. Love to see that logo. Now here it is, the RetroTink 5X Upscaler itself. I do have to say I love the burlap style bag. Now these bags are not cheap, but they are super high quality. It kind of goes throughout the entire thing, giving you that extra little bit more. Now before we get to this, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the other items that come in the box. So in the box we do have the remote control itself, and like I mentioned, this does look exactly like units that I've used with other Android TV boxes in the past. Now taking a look here, I want to say that these are AAA yep, definitely AAA batteries that are in here, so we'll get that loaded up here. And as you can see on the front of the remote here, it is an infrared sensor like I said, so you do have to have it having line of sight access to your RetroTink 5X. Now someone had asked me if I had ordered this, and I feel dumb because I honestly did not remember, but it also includes a SCART to composite adapter. And what this allows you to do, if you're not using SCART, but say that you have an NES that you want to hook up via composite, you can adapt that SCART input that you may not be using otherwise to a composite video input. Now one of the cool things on this adapter too is it does also feature S-Video, which I was not expecting. So another S-Video input on here as well. Now Forever Mike has included really nice braided micro USB cables, and this one is no different. Nice braided, looks to be about 4 feet long on here, and it should withstand any abuse or wear and tear that lesser cables. Again, this is another one of those nice things that Mike does with his RetroTink product line to just take it to that next level for you. Alright, I have delayed it long enough. It is now officially time to take a look at the RetroTink 5X. I am super excited. I hope you are as well. Now, one of the things I have to say is this is definitely a molded composite case. Originally, I had thought that the buttons on the front and everything, it looked like it was 3D printed. It's not. This is injection molded. You can see the way that the input, the RetroTink and everything, those logos are molded in. On the side, you have your SCART input, and then you have your left and right, although they're right and left here. I understand normally you'd have the RetroTink turn around looking the other way just like this, so the right would be on the right, left would be on the left, but it's not. Also have your green cable here, which is also your composite input. So like I have a 4-way AV switcher box, and for me what I do is my fourth input is for composite, and I just use the green for that. On the bottom of it you can also see that it has the two bunny logos. Overall, a very nice looking kit. Now one of the things I do want to do is I want to compare the size of the RetroTink 5X to some of the other options that are out there. We are going to start with the RetroTink, the original here, and as you can see the RetroTink 2X quite a bit smaller, but also fewer features in here. A lot of things that, I mean, this was a great kit for its time, but it's definitely been improved upon. Up next, now this is the RetroTink SCART, and it's pretty much the same case that the multi-format and the Pro use. I just didn't want to pull those out of my setup right now. And on here you can see, again, quite a bit smaller. Now, a lot of the features in here are also in the 5X, but now the 2X SCART only does 2 timeline multiplication versus the 5 timeline multiplication of the RetroTink 5X. And finally, comparing it to the device that this will be replacing, this is the OSSC, so it is a little bit larger than the OSSC that actually I wasn't quite expecting. Now there are a few different things on here. First and foremost, the audio input, they're not RCA jacks. You actually have to use a headphone to RCA jack adapter for the input for both the VGA, and your standard component video input here. Here's your SCART cable, here is your component video input. It does not do composite at all, but the one thing again, if you're using either VGA or the component video cables, is you do have to go in through that headphone jack. And one final thing that this does have to, as I mentioned a couple times here, it does have a VGA input. Now that is designed, or at least I've used it primarily with the Sega Dreamcast. So for some people, not having VGA might be a big loss. I actually recently picked up a DC HDMI mod kit, so I will be adding the HDMI features to my Dreamcast. Finally, and this is something I am going to miss, is the fact the OSSC does have this really nice display on here. I don't tend to use the on-screen display with the OSSC, but here we have the 5X. It is quite a bit larger. I mean, I'd say about 10 to 15% larger. I do like the fact that the overall layout just makes more sense with everything on one side of the system. So here we have Disney's Aladdin playing on my Sega Master System, and this is coming through, I believe this I have hooked up via SCART right now. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what the case is. Easiest way to tell, let's hit the input button, and this is actually coming through SCART RGB. That is my TurboGrafx 16, and hitting the input button again. I don't have anything coming through composite, but it is reading component as composite, just without any of the colors on there. Another option, there's S-Video. I don't have anything going into S-Video right now. And then back to SCART CV as SDTV. And then we'll hit it one more time. This is YPBPR for SCART. So those are the different options that we have there on the input settings. Now for the output resolutions right now, I'm going to hit the multifunction button. And this is 720p. 768p, 480p, 1080p fill. Now I want you to notice the overscan basically at the bottom there, and then there is the 1080p over, so that basically moves everything down a little bit, takes care of that overscan that we were seeing. And here's the under. 1200p, which is pretty cool. Now I am capturing this using the Genki Shadowcast, so that's interesting that this is working for that. Now it is one of those things too that I am not trying to play on it, so no lag or latency issues that I'm running into right now. And then here is 1440p, so those are the different resolutions that the system supports. Now let's go to the H sampling, and to do that I click the mouse button. And that is now set for the Super NES, PC Engine, PS1, basically 256. That's for the Genesis, PS1, and Saturn at 320. There's the N64 320, which actually, for the Master System, does not look bad. There's the Neo Geo at 320, Saturn at 352, PS1 at 384. There's a generic 4x3, generic 16x9, and then back to Super NES, PC Engine, PS1 at 256. Now, for some reason, this is looking stretched. There's the 320p, so I'm wondering if that isn't having to do with the Genki Shadowcast. Now we're going to go ahead and change the interpolation, so that is set to soft, and that is sharp, and you can see the pixel differences there. Scanlines, this is something that I am not a huge fan of, but I'm just not a scanline fan. So here we obviously have scanlines off. We're going to wait to get to some action here. All right, so scanlines off. There's 50% scanline strength, 90%, and then 100%, and back to normal. Now in the vertical sync, it has two different settings. There's a triple buffer and a frame lock, and basically the difference between this is the triple buffer uses a full frame memory and an externally derived clock to maintain a consistent 60 frames per second. The lag varies between a quarter to 1.25 frames of lag in this mode. Now the triple buffer also offers the highest compatibility across all equipment and immunity against sync loss and resolution changes at the expense of some slightly increased lag and you do get an occasional judder due to the need to repeat and drop frames. Now the frame lock uses the video ADC, and the console is the base clock. The output frame allows the original console exactly with a fixed lag of approximately a quarter of a frame. The frame lock may not be compatible with some TVs and capture cards depending on the console's time frame. The frame lock is automatically engaged for 480p, 576p, 720p, and 1080i sources, since they are generally different from modern equipment that generally allow for standard refresh rates. The deinterlacer has a couple different ways that it works. The FPGA is capable of multiple high-quality and advanced deinterlacing modes to produce flicker-free and low artifact video from both 480i and 576 content. Motion Adaptive analyzes the video on a pixel-by-pixel basis to intelligently blend and weave and bob modes together based on the video content. Weave stitches the odd and even fields together, which results in an extremely sharp image for still content, but you kind of get some teething artifacts during motion. Blend is the same as weave, except for the addition of vertical averaging filter that converts the teething into ghosting and results in a loss of vertical sharpness. Bob simply doubles each field to the full vertical resolution for fluid motion, but flickers like a CRT. Linear is the same as Bob, except for with a vertical smoothing filter to reduce flicker at the cost of a softer image. And there's also a CRT Simulate, draws the image by blanking the unused lines for each field to mimic a standard definition display. None of the interlacer options add any lag whatsoever, but the 1080i source can only use Bob to 1080p. The YC filter, there are two different YC filters, a 4-line comb and a notch. Generally, 4-line comb will produce the best results, while notch may resemble a vintage CRT. Some consoles, such as the Sega Genesis, that use off-spec composite encoding may look better with the notch filter. Let's take a look right here and see what we can get. There's notch. There's the 4-line comb. I don't notice much of a difference. But again, this is the Master System, not a Genesis, so good to note there. With color space, you have RGB full and RGB limited. Full range uses code 0 to 255, while limited uses 16 to 235. Normally this should be set to RGB full, but if your TV or capture card shows images that are darker clipped, you can try setting this to limited. There's RGB full. There's limited, and what I'm noticing is when I turn limited on, it softens the black, so they are not quite as deep and rich. So SDTV LPF, that is the low pass filter. The internal 9 MHz low pass filter can be enabled to clean up standard definition, RGB, and YPB PR sources that are noisy at the expense of some sharpness. By default, the low pass filter is automatically turned on. If you are using a source with a built-in low pass filter, such as an HD Retrovision cable or bypass mod, you can turn this off to avoid excessive loss of sharpness in generic sampling modes. The L-gun border, this is basically a very specialized thing that most people probably won't utilize. This turns on a 20 pixel wide white border around the outside of your image if you want to use the Syngun light gun. Other than that, you probably won't use it. One of the exciting experimental features that Mike has built into the RetroTink 5X is also a 240p downscaler. This will basically output 240p from 480i, 480p, and 720p sources. 480i sources are converted to 240p by shifting the odd and even fields together spatially. 480p and 720p discard every other line and every 2 lines respectively. The up and down buttons on the remote can be used to shift the image vertically and control the phase of the line discard. The H sampling menu can be used to control the aspect ratio of the 720p downscaling. Generic 4x3 crops the inner 960 of the 1280 pixels in 720p for sources that have black bars on both sides. Once the 240p downscale option is enabled, the output resolution is locked at 240p. Mike recommends enabling this option on an HD TV that you turn off the RetroTink 5X to save the settings and then moving it to your CRT. You will need an HDMI to analog video converter, such as an HDMI to component box or HDMI to VGA with a suitable sync combiner. The one thing you should never do is do not connect your standard definition CRT if the RetroTink 5X is outputting a non-240p resolution, or you could damage your TV. The final two things that we have here, first and foremost, your version number. So here is the RetroTink 5X Pro version 1.1 in the upper left-hand corner. And then the bunny logo and everything too, which just looks phenomenal. So that is a basic walk through the menu systems of the RetroTink 5X. So there you have it, my unboxing of the RetroTink 5X and a walk through the menu systems. And I want to say I've been very deliberate here with a few things. Some of the earlier RetroTinks had issues playing Sega systems. The Genesis was a known issue with the original RetroTink, and Mike acknowledged that and fixed that in later versions. It's one of the reasons why I've had the Master System going, why I've had the JVC XI. While it's not a Sega system, it's a Sega system, we all know that. I'm glad to see that it works just fine with those, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I can't believe just how sharp this looks, and even my TurboGrafx looks terrific as well, whether I was using SCART or if I was using component video cables. It just looked beautiful. Now make sure you are again subscribed to the channel, because we will be doing a full-blown review, and we are going to feature content from just about every system that I have. We're not going to do one long video with everything. I'm going to do an overview review of the system, and then I will break out a separate playlist that shows like the Famicom, the NES, the Super NES, the N64, the Saturn, things along those lines. So it may not have everything all in one, but we're going to be doing some extensive footage capturing with this device. And at least from what I'm seeing here initially, oh yeah, my OSSC, not long for this world. And I do love the fact, if you are not going to use SCART, that Mike does offer this Composite to SCART adapter, which will allow you to use that SCART input that might otherwise go unused and actually utilize it, and the fact that it also does S-video. Pretty cool on there. Now, if you are looking to pick one up, May of 2021, when I'm recording this right now, the next batch, Mike is estimating that they should have those in stock June or July. Make sure you are following at RetroTink2 on Twitter. That's where Mike will go ahead and update when the next batch is available. I do want to thank Mike for helping me make sure that I did get one of these. It is one of those, I did pay for this myself. This wasn't a free review model, but Mike did help me to make sure that I was able to get one, so thank you for all that. Now, if you do have any other comments or questions, as always, please feel free to leave them down below. That's where I'll have the link where you can go ahead and check out and learn more about the RetroTink 5X. You can also go ahead and email me any questions that you might have at rocksolidmail@gmail.com. You can send me a message on Twitter at RockSolidStudios. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/RockSolidProductions and Instagram at instagram.com/RockSolidProductionsGK. And like I mentioned, give Mike a follow on Twitter too at RetroTink2. Now, if you are looking for other videos talking about component or SCART video cables, some of the upscalers that we've tested out in the past, some clone systems, those videos are coming up right now. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to support the future of Rock Solid Productions, you can do so by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/rocksolid. For as little as $1 a month, $12 a year, you'll get early access to all of our video content, exclusive content, and a whole lot more. You can also become a channel member here on YouTube for as little as $1.99 a month, and with that, you get a badge next to your name when you comment or post on the channel, and you are acknowledged whether you are a channel member or a Patreon supporter at the end of each and every one of our videos. You can also support the channel by visiting our Teespring store on screen now, where we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, masks, cell phone cases, and much more. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.